I'm Christina, a recovering people pleaser turned assertiveness expert. I was tired of taking the back seat to what other people wanted, and I finally cracked the code to go from hesitant and timid to self-assured and confident. I became a women's empowerment coach so that I could help other women like me find their words, feel heard, and step into their power. If you struggle to speak up in tricky situations and you're looking to change the way your conversations go, you're in the right place. Let me start out this episode with a little bit of a story. I love my mom. My mom and I have a very close relationship. She loves to go shopping, whether it's for clothes or for things around the house, things for her grandsons, all of that. So I have several memories of her where she goes to a store, like JCPenney, Target, wherever, and she finds something she likes. She said, and it was on sale and everything, but I don't have the money right this second, or I need to check on something. And I remember when I was younger, she would take the item and she would put it at the back of the rack, and she'd be like, that way nobody can find it. But there were a couple of times when she would go back and the item would be gone, or the sale was done, or the size that she needed was no longer there, kind of thing. And it was always funny, not funny, right? And we finally, we both started saying, you have to get it when you see it. You can't just wait for later. The one example I remember from recently is she was looking for some new camping chairs because we like to go to my nephew's soccer games and you have to take your own chairs. And she had some already, but they were getting old. And she saw these nice chairs. They were on sale, and she was like, okay, I'll come back and get them later. Sure enough, the chairs were gone. I've seen different things happen over the years. The sale is over, the product is out, or the other one that gets us is we'll forget about that thing we were going to go get until we need it. And then it's kind of too late, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this type of example into a podcast about women speaking up for themselves is this. The absolute best time to bring up the topic that you're having trouble with is when you're already talking to the person, or not long after the event happened, probably within the week. There's so many things to consider, and I'm going to give you a caveat, so stay tuned. I've fallen in the trap of waiting for later, and then I've waited so long that bringing it up feels a little awkward, because it's like, oh yeah, do you remember that thing that happened a month ago? Essentially, later doesn't make it better. In fact, it probably makes it worse. Here's the caveat though. Use your best judgment to determine if the other person is even open to hearing it. Like if you're talking to somebody and they're really upset or they're really happy about something that is happening to them, it's probably not the best idea to be like, okay, well, here's my concern. Let me rain on your parade, right? So that's one thing that I found is if the other person they have their own emotions about the situation, you might, depending on the situation, you might have to ride with them on those emotions for a little bit. Let them have their celebration. Don't rain on their parade. Or let them have their anger and frustration. Don't try to minimize it. But at the same time, when you're already on the topic, and if they seem open and receptive to what you have to say, there is no better time to bring it up. So, before we move on to a list of a few things I want to bring to your attention on this, I would love it if you would share this episode with anyone you think might benefit from hearing about this. Whether they do kind of go in too quickly when they shouldn't, or when it's a really good prime time for them to bring up their concerns, frustrations, or even their joys, and they find it hard to do it, I would be so grateful if you would share this episode with them. There are a few things that can happen when we wait for later. And these, I feel like maybe we all know about them, we've experienced them, but I really want to draw them out. So, first of all, and this is one that I was guilty of, when we wait too long, it can be awkward. Like I said earlier, it's like, yeah, do you remember that thing that happened a month ago that we're both kind of over, but I'm not really fully over? I need to talk to you about that. And the other person is like, A, they don't even remember what you're talking about. B, they've processed it in the way that they needed to, or the way they thought was appropriate, because they thought they had all the facts. They thought they had everything that you wanted to say, kind of thing. So that's what'll happen when you wait too long. It gets awkward. They're on a totally different page. And, they're now on page 50 of the book, and you want to go back to page 25. And again, I talked about the second one is when we wait too long, the other person doesn't even remember. I'll tell you what, and I know he's okay with me sharing this part. Not that long ago, my husband talked about he asked for a statute of limitations because he was like, okay, can there be a point in time where this doesn't come back up? Or I can't remember the exact words he used, but he said something like, do I have to continuously live thinking that something from several years ago is going to come up? Now I'm going to own that. That's my bad. If it's been several years, that's definitely too long. I'm talking, like I said, in most situations, you should probably bring it up within the week. Another thing that can happen when we don't speak up in the moment and we just kind of let it sit, our emotion fades away. We're not in the emotion that will help us act and say something. And as it fades away, I've noticed that a lot of people, me in particular, we can start negotiating because we forget how big those emotions were. And we start saying, well, it's probably okay. I probably made too big of a deal out of it. And then we negotiate, we dismiss it, and things like that. The fourth thing that can happen when we don't speak up or we're waiting for later is the other person can't change because they don't even know that there was a problem for as long as you don't say something. And so as long as they think what they think and you haven't brought your cards to the table, it's business as usual. They might do it again, or they might think everything is solved and done and ready to go. And what we need to do is make sure that our cards are on the table. And then the fifth thing is, when we don't speak up and we hold it in, resentment can start to build even when we don't realize it yet. And the energy of the situation festers. It really, really does. And like I said, we may not even realize it, but then the other person might bring up something that isn't 100% directly related, but it reminds you of that first concern, and you start to generalize. We start to generalize. Oh, well, they never let me do this anyway. They don't care how I think. Is it that they don't care? Or is it that we haven't said anything? And we really have to honestly ask ourselves that. So, very particularly, I have this always on the outro of these episodes, but I want to call special attention to my free resource. It's titled 3 Simple Steps to Speak Up for Yourself, even if you just want to run and hide. Because I get it. Sometimes it feels safe not to say something. You don't want to bring up confrontation, or you don't want to contradict what the other person is saying, or even in the moment we'll start negotiating, or we think we'll craft a perfect response and we need to think about this. We don't say anything. So I have this free PDF that I made, and I think it can really help you. It's titled 3 Simple Steps to Speak Up for Yourself, even if you just want to run and hide. You'll find the link in the show notes. In the last couple of episodes, I talked about a situation with maintenance at my office building, and this resource was born from that situation. I needed to speak up for myself in the moment. I didn't have time. He said something that threw me off, but I was very successful, and I said what I needed to say. And because of that, I said, okay, what worked? And how can I reproduce this, replicate this, and how can I share it with you? So again, my free PDF is called 3 Simple Steps to Speak Up for Yourself, even when you just want to run and hide. And you can find the link in the show notes. Talk to you soon.